Welcome to the second pilot of PolyCast, the official podcast of Apolyton Civilization Site at apolyton.net. I'm one of your co-hosts, Dan Quick, also known as DanQ, and the co-owner and administrator of ACS. With me is
Wouter Snijders, known as Locutus on the forums.
And Makahlua, who prefers to go by Mackie.
Hello.
We start off again in the news department, looking at Civilization 5, Chronicles, Take-Two Interactive's financials, Galactic Civilizations 2 Dreadlords' patch, and the ports of not just Civilization 4, but also Civilization 3 on the Macintosh. On the Modcast front, we discussed what speeds we play at in Civilization 4, the decline of Islam, and should America be a civilization in civilization? Then it's off to the research lab where we burn some mega events, measure navigable rivers and canals, and hypothesize supply lines using Rise of Nations as a base example. Oh, there's banter too. It's the glue that holds the show together, for better or worse. Without further ado, let's head over to the news department. With this week's headlines, here's Mackie.
Sid Meier interviewed in German. Civ 5 is coming. Civilization guru Sid Meier attended the German Games Convention a few weeks ago in Leipzig, Germany, and gave a number of interviews to German magazines. In one of these, he revealed something about his own playing style as a gamer. When he's new to a game, he relies on rushing to win games early, but as he grows more familiar with the game, he's more of a builder and wants to fully experience the game, postponing the end as long as possible. More importantly, he announced that there will definitely be a Civilization 5 in the future. He already has some ideas of where to go with it, but declined to provide any details. Oh, Sid, you tease. I suppose, Civ 4 having done so well, we know is coming eventually.
That's true, but
it's like starting the hype a couple of years early.
But just a few months ago, I think, he said, we just did Civ 4, we're going to wait a couple of years. And now he's talking about, Civ 5, I'm thinking about it. So that's kind of a change of heart he had there. It seems like, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to hear that Civ 5 is in the cards in the future. And, as, Mackie was saying, financially speaking, and critically speaking, it's no surprise, but there's still at least one more Civ patch and expansion to go. Touch-ups and additions that can still be explored. With all that happened with the game, it just seems like more than a year since Civ 4 was first released, but it hasn't been, too soon for develop even on Civ 5 just yet. And, try to see if suggestions for additions or other changes could come about, again, in another expansion, because one has already been confirmed.
Yeah, that's true. I was actually surprised, because earlier they said Civ 5 is at least a couple of years off. We're kind of done with Civ right now, or at least we're making a new game. That's pretty much what Sid said earlier. So I was kind of expecting there to be a third expansion pack for Civ 4. But if he's already talking about it now, I'm not so sure anymore.
What was all just interesting here is where he was talking about how he plays and how he starts out rushing and then ends up being more of a builder. Which, it makes me feel good because I tend to be more hybrid like that. At first, when I had started playing Civ 4, I was doing more war, but now that I'm starting to learn it, I'm trying to do things like the cultural win and stuff. So.
What was saying that Sid has confirmed what I believed all along, but wasn't sure I ever wanted to admit, and that our playing styles are opposite. I'm sorry, Sid. I go for the full experience of the game at the outset, technology and culture, and then I try my hand at rushing once the AI gives me a suggestion or two of what to do, or what not to do, depending upon the situation.
In other words, you just suck at playing this game. If you need to take pointers from the AI.
Would you let the advisor tell you what to build? What's that about?
That's why I said the AI gives me a suggestion or two what or what not to do.
Yeah, sure.
That's right.
Sure, we believe you.
And who's to say AI isn't an abbreviation for somebody I know, right? AI, I'm sorry. I had no idea Wouter was so insensitive.
Okay.
Dan slipped another gear.
We didn't have that many to begin with.
That's why we're getting worried.
Only getting worried?
Well, I mean, more than we have been.
Not really. I was already pretty worried. Then again, he's lost fast.
UK Games and Firaxis have announced they are releasing a new box set, Sid Meier's Civilization Chronicles. This behemoth package is composed of all 4 base Civilization games plus their expansions, with the exceptions of Warlords, CivNet, and Civ 2 Multiplayer Gold. However, the package does include a number of extras such as an original tabletop card game designed by Soren Johnson, a book about the history of Civilization, the game that is, a video DVD with a prototyping presentation given at E3 and PolyCon, as well as gameplay footage, trailers of every Civ game, tech trees, wallpapers, podcast episodes, and more. Civilization Chronicles will be released in October in the US and cost $70.
I'm quite curious about the card game for this one. I mean, I already have all the games, so I don't necessarily need to buy those again. But the card game sounds quite interesting.
I hope the card game is as easy as, say, Go Fish, so I actually have a chance to win if I were to play, but it does sound interesting, actually.
So you're saying if it's a card game, you hope it plays at Warlord level for you? Or no, Settler level for you?
Okay.
Oh, maybe it plays at Settlers of Catan. You normally have to win 10 points to win, but in your case we'll make it 5. And you'll still lose every single time.
Oh.
I can fully appreciate why Warlord's not included on this list, but to me its admission does stand out as a bit of a sore thumb, particularly given it's the latest Civ title release and, the attention it's still drawing from the industry as well as fan circles. And for this reason, maybe a delay so as to include Warlords might have been in order, but then again, that probably would have overshot the release past Christmas. And I know...
Oh. Yeah, especially if they wanted to get the latest patch in there, too.
That too.
Yeah, I think it's if you're gonna include Warlords, you're not gonna do that until it's dropped a fair amount in price, because otherwise you just have to add $40 to the price, and I don't think anyone's gonna pay more than $100 for a package like this. So you wouldn't be able to release it basically until the next expansion pack comes out.
Yeah, and kudos on the price if you don't already own these titles.
Yeah.
It'd be hard pressed to buy all these titles secondhand. Let's say, you could find them. It'd be hard to buy them secondhand from, say, eBay or Amazon Marketplace or where have you, for the same, let alone or even a lower price. Not even mentioning all the bonuses that you get for this as well. But similarly then, I would recommend that you be able to get these extras on themselves, by themselves. If at a later date, if you want to make it after Chronicles is released, okay. So those who already own these titles don't have to buy the games and add-ons again.
Yeah, I think that's the way the system works. You always have these for movies and the like as well. There's first the regular DVD and then there's the special edition, or the director's cut or whatever you want to call it. They're just making you
and then
platinum.
It's a series boxed in a set and are we all thinking of Lord of the Rings right now?
Yeah, that's just the way these things work. It's capitalism.
It might have been also good if they had included all of up to and through Civ 3 and then left Civ 4 and done a special box set after they have all the expansions out for Civ 4.
And they might still do that. I see them capable of that.
Yeah, they might still. Yeah, but if you've already got Civ 4 and you've got most of the other games, I don't know if the extras are
that's my problem as well. I'd love to get my hands on the card game, but not for $70.
Yes, so separate release, please, for those extras. Please, with the cherry on top?
Yeah, right.
Please?
Like, that's gonna...
I know, but we can ask.
And I'm assuming that video DVD with the prototyping presentation by Soren and Dorian is from the Game Developers Conference, or that they gave the presentation otherwise for the purpose of
DVD. It's obviously not from Apolyton. I hope not.
Polygon, no. All that footage was taken by me. I admit, it's the first time, amateur run. The final important question is what version of Civ through Civ 4 and its expansions are going to be included on the CD-AD installation. I've seen concerns about this. So if it's going to be the original releases, okay, let's say that is, hopefully the CDs then will contain the latest patches as a manufacturer with directions of how to update, make it easy to install, make the instructions easy. Civ 4 maybe perhaps notwithstanding because of the in-game, check and install ability, but I think that's an important question that some people are going to want to ask. and want an answer to.
It's good to have an answer to, but I don't think it's a huge issue. If there aren't patches on it, you can always download them yourselves. It's of course an annoyance. It would be better if the patches were on there, but it's not something that would affect my decision whether or not to buy the game.
Yeah, because there's a few sites out there that keep patches of older games, so it wouldn't be so bad. And the people who are actually going to play the older games from the package are probably going to be, I think, savvy enough to know where it looks. Take-Two Interactive announced selected preliminary financial information for its third quarter, which ended July 31st, 2006. Preliminary net revenues for the third quarter were approximately $240 million, compared to $170 million for the third quarter last year. Among the highlights for this quarter, Take-Two listed the release of both Warlords and Civ City Rome. In addition, the company issued a revenue warning for the third and fourth quarters, citing many issues, including the postponement of a major Rockstar title for the PSP.
Well, Warlords and the release of Civ City Rome are the highlights for what is otherwise a cloudy time at Take-Two Interactive, arguably, but I don't think it's a storm that the mega publisher and subsidiary developer owner, including Firaxis Games, can handle.
Yeah, I think that's the key. They're dealing with a lot of lawsuits and a lot of problems still a year later. But it's a huge company. They're not gonna go under because of these lawsuits.
No, and they've got plenty of other developers with strong games coming out, so it's annoying for them, and it's making their stock go down probably just a little bit, but it's not a big, long-term thing that's going to affect them.
And, postponement of a major Rockstar title for the PSP? Oh, you're just building up anticipation. Very clever. I'm on to you.
Oh, what's the major title? Hot Coffee for the PSP?
No, they got 2 titles lined up. I don't remember the names offhand. But all this is accomplished is that people are now speculating which of the 2 has been delayed. So I'm not sure what they were trying to do with that.
Oh, no, we are sure. They wanted people to talk about it.
That's probably a good point.
Hype.
In 2006 comes Hot Coffee. In 2007, Hot Coffee Sugar and Cream Expansion Pack.
Oh, that's so wrong, but I can just see somebody doing that.
If you like that, you can send me some royalties. Royalties.
Mm-hmm.
He likes shiny things.
Where? Tease me! I can only take so much.
Last week, Stardock released an update to Galactic Civilizations 2 Dreadlords, bringing it up to version 1.3. It does not include any major changes or a lot of bug fixes, but rather a long list of minor tweaks and improvements based on user feedback, which should increase the game's lifespan.
Stardock has gotten a gold star for support from me, and I think many others, for just these kind of updates. They were the first developer publisher that I know of anyway to offer an expansion pack for free. GalCiv's Expanded Universe. Perhaps after Dark Avatar, we'll see a free add-on for GalCiv 2 as well. You guys have set a precedent,
That's true. That's kind of nice of them. This expansion is basically a long list of small fixes. So, it's not really a major overhaul, but I guess it's nice if you play the game. Kind of changes things around a little bit, makes it fresh again.
Yeah, it's nice to see developers constantly going back at the game and looking, maybe we need to tweak this and tweak that, and it's not a major thing, but they're thinking about it.
Yeah, and you're not going to have a lot of people going, I don't know if I want to upgrade because they're going to change this and this and this that I really got used to, or it's, oh man, I really need to get this update because this doesn't work. This is just kind of a feel-good release. Yeah,
it's the kind of way you want patches to games to be, instead of, oops, we broke that, we need to fix it again.
Of course, that's exactly what happened, because 5 days later they did release another patch in which they fixed everything you broke in version 1.3. But hey, it's the thought that counts.
Aspire Media, publishers of Civ 4 for the Mac, have announced that we'll be publishing the game's expansion pack Warlords with an anticipated release date of November 2006.
Now I know Mac users, I know it's been a while since a game, would you like me to spell that for you? G-A-M-E, okay, has been released on your platform. There's no reason to be scared. It's a good thing, okay?
I think they've got it under control.
Do they? So hopefully you guys can make some room on your hard drives. I don't know, what have you guys been playing recently? Frogger.
Now.
But seriously, good stuff, As far as I'm aware, Mac gamers have no reason to fear Aspyr Media and their relatively new in-house publisher, Aspyr Studios. They've done well porting Civ 4, Civ 3 and its expansion packs, and as back far as 2000, taking into account the ports of Alpha Centauri and Alien Crossfire.
You don't play a lot of Mac, obviously. I don't know if you've recently checked any Mac gaming sites, but there's quite a lot of Mac games out there, so Mac isn't quite as behind the things as you might think.
He just needs somebody to
That's
pick
true.
on because we pick on
That's
him.
true.
I know you Mac users. I know you guys have lots of games, but I don't know, with a lot of games, when they come out, there's a little bit of a disappointment, because people on the PC have already had a chance to play it. You feel let down? It's okay. These feelings are natural. Express
Good.
them. Explore them. Don't be
That's what you
afraid.
get for buying a Mac.
Don't bottle it up inside.
Oh.
Don't. Please.
You can send the hate mail to the two of them, not me.
I like getting hate mail.
Yes, so send them to Locutus at Apolyton.net, and that will get to both of us at some point.
Somehow.
Yes.
I'll make sure
Yes,
it
it
gets
will.
forwarded.
I'll just read Wouter's mail. Don't worry. Oh, no, wait.
He does that anyway. Also recently released by Aspyr was a new patch for Civ 3 Complete, updating to version 1.22 Rev A plus a number of bug fixes.
Aspyr, with all their recent work on Civ 4, patches for it, and now working on the port for the expansion Warlords, that they would go back to Civ 3 Conquest and fix a number of bugs there as well. It's one of two things. It's either complimentary for the length of support they're providing, or scary considering how lengthy they've had to extend support in order to correct these problems. I'm going to go with the optimistic track.
Yeah.
Not the, we're tired of hearing about this stuff at tech support.
If you have any news for us, any news tips, contact us with news
Yes.
tips.
Head on over to apolyton.net/about, look for Contact Us, or news@apolyton.net also works.
And you can also PM.
Yes, you can.
That is true.
Locutus, DanQ, Snoopy369, and Illuminatus. One of us four will get that up there.
Okay, welcome to this week's Modcast, in which we discuss hot issues in forums. The first topic that I would like to discuss comes from both the Civ 4 Warlords and the Civ 4 General forums. Which game speed do you play? Ask several people, actually. What do you guys play at? Standard. Boring.
Standard for some. Well, most of the PBM, I think, usually tends to be standard. But when I'm playing other ones, I will do Marathon and Epic, just so the game doesn't, last long.
Yeah, I would think that the PBM and like multiplayer would often be played on quick, because otherwise these games are never gonna end.
No, we've got one. I'm trying to. There's a couple of the. I guess standard is more comfortable for a lot of people with the PBM because, well, for one thing, you don't have the timer clock in front of you going.
That's true. That's true.
And people are more familiar with how long it takes to get certain things. You have more of a feel for where you're supposed to be when you hit a certain year. So I think that's what's stuck around, at least in the ones I'm in. But for myself, I'm usually playing on a larger map. I don't want it to be over really quickly. What's the point of playing on the larger map?
Yeah, that's true. And the quick mode really lends itself for smaller maps, and Marathon you get most out of that on a big map. That's definitely scales with map size.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Dan?
As I said, just standard map size. It's really the only map size I've ever played on so far. I admit I've taken a look at a few of the others, but I guess I just went with my first instinct and I stuck with it. And as for Marathon, the related comment about Marathon mode is excellent. I'm not even sure how to pronounce this user's name. Hengist, Hengist. Anyway, he or she talks about being able to build troops now and to use them. But, I'm not much of a warmonger, so I'm not really enticed to try it just yet. But maybe someday.
Yeah, well, that's why Marathon is good, because then you can have something, like the Praetorians aren't, that way the Praetorians don't get outdated before you can build up an army of them.
Yeah, but they also take longer to build, so that kind of balances each other out, cancels each other out. But personally, I'm not a big fan of Marathon. It just takes too long. Everything goes too slow. I like Epic. It takes a little bit longer than the standard game. It's quite fun, but Marathon just takes things a little bit too far for my taste.
Yeah, I did Marathon a couple of times at first, and I was like, oh, no, I think I've hit the limit of too much.
That's a problem that the Call to Power series also ran into in Call to Power 2. The game lasts like 800 turns, and that's a standard game. That's just too long. There's a limit to how even most Civ fans like big maps, everything as big as possible, but there's the upper limit. If you have to wait 20 turns for a warrior to be built, that's not really fun. You just keep hitting enter, enter, enter.
It's good to help you, build practice in repetitive tasks. Something to be said for it.
Mm-hmm.
Or to give you repetitive stress injury.
The decline of Islam. Well, go ahead, Mackie.
I was going to say at first that sounds like something you see on PBS.
Well, Karnal Kanan, Karnal Kanan, there we go, talks about how many games he's seen being dominated by Judaism, so I'm not sure why he's citing Islam as being a particular decline as opposed to other religions beside Judaism, but at least in vanilla Civ 4, I have never noticed a pattern of a particular religion dominating more than another. Oh, well, no, wait, that's not quite true. That would be the one that I adopt. Stick with theocracy throughout the game, and do whatever I can do to convert or reconvert other civs to that religion. Woo!
Yeah, but the ones that are the further down the tech tree, going from Confucianism
That's what I want to say as well. It's always Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, always one of those three. I've never seen Islam as a major religion.
Unless I happen to be the one that adopted it because I missed the other ones.
Yeah, but I do agree that is something that would be nice if it were fixed one way or another. I've personally suggested in the past that the text at which you get a religion are moved forward, so that they come early in the tech tree, so that even if you're the last to grab a certain religion, it's still early in the game and you've plenty of time to spread it. But I do think somehow this should be addressed probably, because it's kind of boring if it's always the same 2 or 3 religions.
Yeah, it works better on a larger map, especially if you have multiple continents, because then you get blocks of areas that just have 1 or 2 religions. But when you're all on a Pangea, no, it doesn't work, because somebody gets it early, and if it's somebody like Isabella, it spreads.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, these religions were designed for a certain map type. They don't scale with the number of maps. If you play on a small map, you really ought to disable 1 or 2 religions at the start of the game, because 7 religions, if you're only playing with 5 civs, what's the point? The point of religions is that they should be rare. That's actually kind of odd that it doesn't scale in any way. You might want to consider a feature that if you play with X civs, you get X divided by 2 religions or something like that.
Or as another one of the game settings, number of religions.
America? ? Okay, this debate, again, okay. Yes to America, yes to Aztec and Inca and Maya I'll throw in there too. Counterpoint, what about some of the civs that appear in Rise of Nations but never in any civ title, like the Bantu and the Nubians? Perhaps that could be explored at this point.
I actually think bringing up Rise of Nations is a good point, because but for a different reason. Rise of Nations is a game in which America isn't featured, or only in an expansion pack. And I think there is a case you could make for that, because the impact America has had on history is really from the last century or so. At Civilization, if you look at the leaders in the game, the wonders, everything, the game pretty much stops after 1960 or so. The only post-1960s wonder is the internet. And the leaders also, Churchill is the most recent leader, and he died in the early 1960s. So I guess you could say there is a case for America not being in the game. I like that in Rise of Nations. I'm really someone that's maybe me. I'm really into ancient history. I don't care too much about 20th century history. So I think actually there's a good case to be made for that. But I can also see the point of people who don't agree with that. If you're really more interested in modern history, obviously the US is very important in that era.
Something I like about Rise and Fall of Civilization is because you have different civs come in there, but they come in at different times. So you don't see America until the 17 or 1800s where you should see them. And so you have this whole rest of the world that grows up around them.
Yes.
And you have to, find your own way in that. You can end up with half the new world colonized right around.
That's true. I like that as well, but I'm not sure if that would really work in the default game. It's great for a mod, but I don't know, it's maybe a bit too construed. Because the thing about Rise project in general, they always really try to very strictly follow history. It's like with the scenario we discussed earlier. The ancient Rome one. Greek world, sorry. He has events in there that the Persians automatically conquer the Middle East, and there's a couple of other just like that. He really wants the game to strictly follow history. I'm not a big fan of that. I think the whole point of Civilization is to replay history, not to reenact it. But yeah, I can see that happening in a mod, and it works nicely enough in Rise and Fall of Civilization. But in the default game, if you're gonna have the US, and I think certainly in the next expansion pack, when you're gonna have probably 30 civs or more, the US definitely deserves to be in. Yeah, but they should be in from the start, because if you're only gonna say the civs in 4000 BC, that's what, 2 or 3 civs? So that would be kinda boring.
Yeah.
Not even Rome, they started
China,
in 700 BC. It's basically China, maybe you could argue for India, you could, definitely Egypt, and Babylon, presuming they are added in the future, which they really ought to be. And you could, if you really wanted to, you could argue that the Incas should be in as well, because civilization, the Incas are fairly recent, but ND and civilization in general, if you generalize it a little bit, does go back as far as 3000, 4000 BC. But then, you would have 4 or 5 civs, and that's it.
But I think for me, in my view, just a general rule of thumb in terms of what civilizations to include and not, let's try to get a reasonable representation of civilizations based now or previously in the Americas, Europe, Africa, and Asia. So that way, if you're really into ancient history as opposed to modern history, maybe you're not going to be ecstatic, but you're going to be happy enough. And the same as if you're in modern. More interested in modern history than ancient. It's all compromise. Not saying all of the time, but perhaps again, just as a general rule, at least starting with that, and then perhaps in expansion packs, you could say, okay, we're going to focus on adding more ancient civs or more modern civs. And then if you're really into ancient civs, you can say, hey, if that's maybe the focus of that expansion pack, I'll pick up that one, or I'm really going to use that one, or I'm going to wait for one that gives me more modern choices.
That's true. But still, if you're gonna make something that's balanced to represent the whole history and the whole world, the one American civ that really ought to be there are the Mayans. Those are really missing. That's a really...
Yeah, I liked it when they came in with Conquest, and I miss them now. They did so much with
and they've been around for a long time. They've been around since 500 BC or so, and they were still, they weren't really they were over the top by the time the Spanish conquered them, but they were still around. And the Aztecs and Incas were only 200-300 years old. So if any American civ deserves, quote unquote, to be included, it should definitely be the Maya.
But hey, if Civ was made in Canada, we might see Canada as a Civ. Developers are here in America. It's kind of hard not to want to include your home country.
I don't know. I mean, I have no desire to include the Dutch. And like I said, Rise of Nations is an American game, doesn't have the Americans. But yeah, I can and obviously understand the appeal to, both for Americans to include America, and also for, if it wasn't an American game, it's obviously a very big market. That's also an important reason. And like I said, if you're into modern history, America is one civ you definitely can't go around.
Well, I think if the civs were included, Wouter, I think you would like Pierre Trudeau as the leader of the Canadian civilization, because then you could give the Trudeau salute. You know, the Trudeau salute.
No.
You have to explain it to us, non-Canadians.
That would be the middle finger.
Okay. Okay, welcome to the Research Lab. This is a section of the show in which we discuss game concepts or ideas that are not in Civ yet, but that might be in the future. Basically the sort of stuff that you will find on the Civ 3 list and the Civ 4 list that have been compiled in our forums over the years. The first item I'd like to talk about is a journal entry on galciv2.com, where Brad Wardell actually talks about would people want mega events, and this is something he suggests for Galciv, but it would work in any other Civ type game as well. Some examples, for example, this sort of exists in Civ 2 as well a little bit, an allied war. 3 of the 9 players who are already friendly decide to ally together and declare war on everyone else. Another example would be Ultimate Doom. A particular civilization is getting their abilities increased by 1% per turn. Eventually they'd be gods. The idea of these events is that they are unbalancing. They really disrupt your existing strategies. So what do you guys think? Would this be a good idea for a Civ type game?
It's very interesting. Especially things like, if you think about it, they actually had this in one of the Civ 3 scenarios. They had the plague, where in the Dark Ages it would come and wipe out, and that really did contribute to, in real history, rise and fall of certain civilizations. So if you had that in the game, and some Civ that was really strong all of a sudden got boom plagued, and then became this tiny little empire because everybody went, "Oh look, you're weak. We'll go take you over."
Yeah, but that's at the same time a little bit also the problem. If it happens to you, I think most people wouldn't enjoy that very much. And if it happens to the AI, it just becomes easier to conquer. So,
they do say, for at least for this Galciv 2, it would be optional. And that's a good thing.
Yes, I think that's the key thing, making it optional.
There were similar events like that could help you or hinder you pretty good in Alpha Centauri. And those were also optional, so you could turn them off if you didn't want to have weird things going on.
Remember those. Can you give an example?
If a particular city you had was really heavy industry producing, sometimes it would have a fungus bloom around it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Planet reacting to it. Or there was also another plague type thing in that one too, where if you didn't have hospital type things built in your cities, you could have a plague that would just run through your cities and decimate your population.
Okay.
I think they were intended to be something more along the balancing line, though. If somebody was getting too far ahead, it would start throwing the bad kinds at them to slow them down a bit.
Because the key about this is really it's unbalancing. It's really disrupting the gameplay. I think it's kind of like, at least in SimCity 1, I don't know for sure about the later games, they also had disasters. And if you really wanted to challenge yourself and your capabilities as a leader, so to speak, you could throw them at yourself. You had tornadoes and monsters and earthquakes.
They've still got it, and it is good. It tells you. You also get to see sort of how good you've built the city up so it can rebuild after.
Yeah, exactly.
If you built it built it really badly, it's not going to rebuild very easily.
Indeed. It's not the sort of thing that would be great if you're playing a game of the month or multiplayer or something like that, because then you really want to know who is the best at making the highest score. And this obviously disrupts that kind of thing. But in purely a single-player game, if you really want to challenge yourself, that could be kind of interesting.
Yeah, the plague seems, to me, rather drastic. Perhaps you could have some tweaking. So, for example, the plague could wipe everyone out who settles in a particular star system if something is not done, such as in Galciv or on a particular continent in Civ. But ultimately, I mean, we're talking about making it optional, and I think that's important because we are talking about an unexpected element of randomness that could have long-term as well as short-term effects, that are not necessarily as annoying as, cleaning up pollution. But At the same time, those playing Gal Civ or what have you might not want this element of added realism. After all, many people will want to play a game to escape the reality of their individual lives or the greater lives we all face together, or so I've heard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as we pointed out just a couple of minutes ago, it is an optional thing. So the people who want to escape could still escape. The people who wanted a challenge could, really throw the book at themselves, so to speak.
Yeah, the Allied War, that's confrontational, always topical. And Wouter mentioned the ultimate doom part about, they're getting their abilities increased by 1% each week or each turn. Yeah. I guess my question is, let's define abilities, whatever that's going to be. Are we talking militaristic, technological, economical, cultural? Just based on the list of the other items that are listed there, perhaps Brad is thinking of a technological or economical side, as we have the militaristic, with the Allied War kind of represented there, and the cultural being addressed with that culture shock.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's like an ideological blindside that could have major ramifications. Perhaps if there was a mechanism whereby if players are able to combat it effectively and, relatively quickly, however we define relatively, then this increase in influence could diminish to some degree, but, it would still need to be substantial. Otherwise, why would we call it a mega event?
Yeah, it kind of sounds like just a mega version of culture bombs from Civ 4 at this point. I mean, without knowing the specifics.
Yeah, the specific event.
And then the fifth one there about, horde of space pirates begin wiping out the defenses of each race. Well, I guess in some respects it sounds like, Civ-based barbarians on steroids, but...
Yeah, a little bit like in Ages of Man, the Dark Age. Don't know if you've actually played that, but...
Oh, yes, from Stan Karpinski. Only a little bit, but yes, set in the Call to Power 2 universe. Okay, should a Civ game have canals and or navigable rivers?
I want them. Especially if you could build it separate from a city, because there's some places like on the Earth map where you've just got that one tile, that separates two big bodies of water, and you don't necessarily want to have to build a city there, or sometimes the AI's already built a city too close, and you want to be able to go in and still build you a way to get through those.
Yeah, but
yes, I agree.
How realistic is that? Because one tile is quite large if you translate it to, say, an Earth map. And even the largest canals in real life, the ones that cut across the continent, they mostly make use of existing rivers and lakes. And Panama and Suez both go through existing lakes. So such a canal, if you translate it to reality, it will be hundreds of kilometers long, probably. And it's not really realistic. It's kind of like terraforming in Civ 2. Where you could transform a desert into plains or mountains into hills, but we can't do that in real life. So it doesn't really make sense in Civ either, I think.
I guess I kind of get the desire to have that in there from having played Alpha Centauri, where you did all sorts of terraforming, so it doesn't seem so, I don't know. Can't think of the word I'm looking for. It seems it would fit in, but then we're dealing with not so good technology for Civ, so
yeah.
Navigable rivers would be nice too.
Yes, I do think that's a good idea. I think that's something that's really been missing, because naval warfare over rivers was really important throughout history, and it's really not in the game.
It seems if there are few perennial strategies throughout Civ titles that have remained the same, other than one's playing style being to win. Another is building cities on or near rivers. So by having them navigable by naval units, could be, as Wouter was saying, with all the connection to history with all the naval battles on rivers, we could see that play out, and we could have a measured balance of additional strategy if balanced properly. In the game, in the game mechanics, it might be best then to have rivers be, a tile unto themselves, but it could certainly spice up even also maps where oceans and, the odd lake are minimal. That would then bring naval units into even greater play.
It would make naval units important overall, because right now they're not really all that important. Basically, just if you want to cross a continent, then you need them, but in any other situation, across from one continent to the next. That's the only case when you really need them. In Civ 4 you have a little bit the resources that are on sea, and with the exception of oil, they're not really all that essential either.
Yeah, and with transporting units, once you get the ability to airlift units, I find that I use it less and less to transport units.
Yeah, that as well. But you're limited in how much you can airlift. So if you really want to do a major invasion to a continent where you don't have any cities, that's really the only situation where you need a navy.
It would also be important for exploration because it was going up rivers and stuff here in the Americas. They discovered a lot of different things, and that's sort of the way they knew which way to go, and they would send settlers. So therefore, there's another way that could also be very helpful.
Yep. And it would allow you to move units along a river faster than you when you cross them. Because in Civ 4, crossing a river costs you all your movement points, or a lot anyway. But moving along a river was in the past something that sped up movement. If you have navigatable rivers, you can have both by loading units into ships, because ships tend to have a fairly high movement points.
Yeah, I remember that colonization actually had it where you could move up and down. You didn't use ships, but you could move your units up and down a river like it was a road.
Yeah, that was true in Civ 1 and Civ 2 as well.
Yeah, because there's been a lot of attention, of course, about just how effective and how useful aircraft units are, and whether or not are they really optional. I mean, you only see them in the later stage game anyways, and if you like to rush very quickly, you might not even get that far before you
in the early game they're not important, but in the late game they're very, very powerful. So I don't think the mechanism could be improved. It's not really a super realistic representation of air warfare, but yeah, they're pretty powerful as it is.
Yeah, the aircraft issue has been addressed, very, very much so, as you said, and I think if we have navigable rivers now, we could similarly help naval units get the attention they so richly deserve. Woohoo, water!
Woo.
Ready for sails. Should the game have unit supply and supply lines? And if so, how should they work?
I say yes, and I'm going to specifically cite Rise of Nations here. You've got artillery units need a supply wagon to maintain their optimum firing range, that is their reload times, where, you got both artillery and the supply wagon units are slow, relatively easy to destroy, and a high priority target for your enemies. There might be some adapting needed here, since we're talking about a turn-based environment for Civ. Might be needed here and there, and Rise of Nations is a good model to help us get started.
The problem with that is in Civ you can stack your units. So in Rise of Nations you can specifically target your supply wagons, but it doesn't really work in Civ because you put them in a big stack and presumably they can't defend themselves, so they would be the last units to be attacked.
A la adapting to a turn-based environment. You see how that umbrella just covers everything?
Okay, and how would you go about doing that? That's kind of the point here.
I don't know. I just come up with the ideas. I don't implement them. I'm the ideas guy.
Okay.
But if I was really an ideas guy, I probably wouldn't admit that. So I don't know what I am.
He's always so confused.
Yes.
Like the idea in theory. It's just I don't know how you're going to implement that without it being one of those unfun things.
Exactly.
That they tried so hard to eliminate.
That's my idea as well. It works great in theory. And I can kind of think of one implementation that would work, but, it's still kind of... What you could do is base the cost of unit supply on how far away they are from home or from a friendly city. That's something that could work. If you're 20 tiles away, you pay 4 gold. If you're 2 tiles away, you pay 2 gold or something like that. And that would...
Isn't there already something like that in the code for if your units are outside of your cultural territory?
You do, but it's I think you either pay maintenance or you don't. It's a very simple system, and if you really base it on depending how far away you are, you really simulate that far-flung wars on distant continents are much, much harder to do than fighting your neighbor. That would kind of work. The only problem is, I think the best part about supply lines is that you can cut them off. And that's not really possible with such a system.
Yeah, because it would be so abstract.
Yes.
You need some sort of unit type thing.
Yeah, and the problem with that is you can't really specifically target those units, as I said. And also it would very quickly become a caravan-like system as in Civ 2, where you just have to move those units everywhere, and it becomes tedious micromanagement, I think. So yeah,
it's unfun again.
It's an unfun thing in practice.
Oh, you could set up some automation ability, I'm sure.
Right, says the ideas guy.
Yeah. Sure, we can do that. You program it. I want it on my desk next week.
Yes, that's what I tell you, yes. That sounds good. What you just said, you just do that.
Okay. I think we've said everything about that we could say. At least I have.
Same here.
Oh, I got nothing to add. Other than space pirates are cool.
I don't know, giant death robots. I gotta go back to those.
There we go. Space pirates and giant death robots.
Yes, and I hear a lot of click, click, click.
Yeah, that's
click.
my
Is
mouse.
That you, Wouter?
I'll edit
Are you
that
looking up prawn
out.
again during the show?
Just talk to the hand.
Oh, well, I never.
I bet you have.
Watch your mouth.
He's over there going, I don't know what they're talking about.
I just listen. That's good.
I'm not bitter.
I'm not better. That sounded terrible.
But what doesn't sound terrible is that next time Imran should be back. He seems to have got his computer problems sorted out. Of course, we won't be a trio anymore.
It could be the Four Corners.
What was that again?
It could be the Ruoth. That's four spelled backwards.
We were too cool to be doing this.
Okay, that was the show for this week. We'll be back again in 2 weeks. Say goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
I was waiting for that.
And we didn't even practice that.
Oh well, short but sweet.
You like it short and sweet?
Key.
Record date September 15th, 2006. Edited by DanQ Quick. Soundtrack courtesy Civilization 4 and Warlords Expansion Pack. Copyright 2006, Apolyton Civilization Site at apolyton.net.